What's up YouTube, and welcome to my channel. I'm Jay, and this video is all about a custom collectible. So taking an off-the-shelf toy or action figure and turning it into something a little bit more refined, a bit more customised and a one-off. So going back 2 years now, and around the time that Thor Ragnarok was doing the rounds, and of course in Thor Ragnarok we met Hulk from the planet Hulk for the first time. I am a massive Hulk fan, and as a result of that period of time, that movie, and then a subsequent birthday, a friend of mine bought me an Incredible Hulk figure from that movie. Now around that time, and literally weeks before my birthday, I had just purchased this particular collectible. So this is, let me just try and get that to focus. There we go, this is a posed Hulk, quite large as you can see, my hands there, in action from that movie. At the same time as I just bought this, my friend had bought me the off-the-shelf Hulk action figure. Now I can't show you the version just yet. I will put a picture of the one that I received on screen now, but you'll see it was pretty basic and quite large. So you know, it's about as big as this, to be honest, height-wise, but not posed, not in action. And what I wanted to do with this figure was to see if I could create my own custom collectible. I've seen a number of people on YouTube do it, specifically watched a lot of Cosplay Chris's videos, so check his channel out if you haven't seen it already. And I wanted to take my action figure apart. So what I thought I'd do, as I foolishly didn't capture any of this on video, I thought I'd just take you through a few pictures and then a few shots of the final product to tell you what I did to create my version of the Hulk. So let's start off and wind the clock back to February 2019 when I decided I was going to do this. And I took apart the figure as it was, just removed the screws, nothing particularly complicated, took it apart into its component pieces and sprayed it in a matte primer from Citadel. All the materials that I used in this, by the way, are on screen. I used predominantly Citadel paints, in fact exclusively Citadel paints. I must have spent about £100 buying these all. Haven't used these paints since I was a kid. It's been a long time since I painted models. I also used their matte primer, and then I sealed the entire figure at the end. I sealed the figure in clear coat. Now I used a matte clear coat, but I'll talk about that at the end and why I'm not entirely satisfied with how that worked. So I started off by priming the figure, removing all the parts to make it easy to paint, and prime the whole thing. Now that's about as far as I got then for about a year. So I didn't touch that figure. It lay in pieces on my table in my room and didn't move basically. Time got in the way. I didn't have a chance to do anything with it. I did eventually then come back to it at the start of this year. So beginning of 2020, I decided I was going to finally get it done. I'd installed a worktop in my office, which was going to be my sort of paint station for this particular project. And you'll see that workstation in a number of future projects. And I thought, well, now's the time. So I started to paint the figure, and I knew this was going to take a long time to do, and I didn't want to rush it. I wanted to enjoy the process and get back into painting, but that's something I hadn't done for a long time. However, I've got to be honest, I've never painted something of this scale. I used to do the miniatures, so we're talking, tiny figures, and all of a sudden we're talking about a figure that's, bigger than my head. Which meant there was a lot of layers, a lot of foundation colours that had to be applied, and I started with Hulk's skin colour. So I started laying down greens, and I used 4 different greens. Again, I'll try and bring those up on screen now. And those greens went down one layer at a time to build up depth in colour. Now I don't know what I'm doing here. I've just copied what I've seen on YouTube already, and as you'll see, the effect was pretty good at the end, but it was far from perfect, and there's certainly things that I need to learn and do better next time. So we started with the green and then started working around some of the brown leather colours, started doing some of the smaller component pieces which were metal, and started to get the layers down for those. And then once I got the foundation colours in place, I then started to apply washes. So with the flesh colour, once that was completely down on all parts, I laid down a green wash. Again, all Citadel paints. And that green wash, now what I should have done is lay that down and dabbed off the excess. I laid it down all over the model and just left it to dry. So you'll see from the finished product there's a bit of streaking in some of that colour. The shadows aren't as good as they could be. But it still added a layer of depth that wasn't there before. I did a similar task on all the metal pieces. I used some creative freedom when it came to some of his armour parts. So I didn't stick to any particular guidelines with this. I allowed myself a bit of creative freedom when it came to choosing what was going to be what. And you'll see that from the finished product as well. So if you directly compared it to pictures online, they're not going to be the same, and I wasn't trying to do that. What I then did was work my way around some more of the larger scale areas, making sure that I'd laid down enough layers to cover over the primer and to give me a good coverage of each of those colours. Then I started to get onto some of the detail. So there's quite a lot of detail on the figure. There were sort of the studs on the fists, there was the lace, there was some of the sort of little bone and stitching on the front of his garments. There were the small metal pieces coming across his body, there was a lot of fiddly stuff in there, and of course the face, things like the eyes, the lips. And then once I'd done all of that, I then applied some dry brushing in places. So I did that to the hair, just put a little bit of a sort of a whitey grey colour, just to try and bring out some of that shape in the hair. I applied some dry brushing to some of the metal, probably not as much as I could have, and in hindsight and on reflection I think the leather areas would have benefited from some highlighting. I didn't do that, and I regret that now. Having said that, it probably took me about 20 hours to finish this model, and I thoroughly enjoyed the process. As I said, it's not perfect. What I'm most frustrated about in terms of the entire project is what I did at the end, which was to seal it. So there was two things, in fact I did at the end. Let me just wind back slightly. The first thing I did was I applied some battle damage or blood in this instance, and I thought it would be great to apply some to his hammer, some to his fist, and to sort of flick and splatter the blood, so just sort of flicking the paint off the brush all over the back of his body. So there's only small spectacles around him, but on reflection I look at it now and think, did it really need it? Probably not. Would it have looked better without it? Yeah, I think it would have. But it was done, it was on, I wasn't going to try and take it off. It was one of those things. Decision made, lesson learned. I then wanted to protect the model, so before I reassembled it all, I sprayed the whole thing in clear coat, but I chose a matte clear coat because I didn't want to create that sort of glossy finish. Unfortunately, what seems to have happened is I've got a glossy finish, and I'm not particularly thrilled about it now. I don't know whether I applied too much. That's quite possible. I've never used it before. Or whether I just had, the matte cell on this product wasn't as matte as I'd expected. Either way, there is some gloss to the figure. You'll all see right now the shots that I've edited over the top of this, but you can see here, this is the finished product. I am genuinely very pleased with it. Side by side with the original, it's significantly better than what was there before. I even managed to solder the internal electrics back on, but it's a little bit stiff, so we'll give it a try.
Hulk friend.
Oh, Hulk friend, there we go. So you can see, I'll show you some of the blood, so just draw the attention to that on the fist there. You can see I applied quite a bit of blood. It sort of flicked around the back, if I just sort of show you the back of the shoulder. So, I tried to make it look he'd just come off the battlefield. It doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great. Similarly, if I grab the hammer, you can see that the hammer as well, I did the same thing with. And again, I don't think it's bad particularly. It's just not, in fact, that doesn't want to focus at all, does it? It's just not as good as it could have been. And I would wonder at the end, was it really necessary? The other thing that I chose to do with the finished model is to keep the helmet off. So I really like how the helmet turned out actually. In fact, if I just sort of show you that, I really like the detail there. I think that's come up really nicely. And you have to compare this to what the original figure was. There's a great amount of detail on this, I have to say. Hugely impressed by that. But I didn't like the helmet on, and actually the couple of times I applied the helmet, it ended up rubbing the paint off, which wasn't brilliant, so I had to touch that up. I'll show you just sort of close up here, the face. Let's try and get, go on camera, not too close for you. There we go. I tried to get, some of that detail in. You can see the lips, the face. I don't think it's terrible. I've not done eyes before. I've never been particularly good at realism. It wasn't something you had to do with the miniatures. And this paint here, I had to try and hand paint that from some pictures online, and I think that's come out pretty well. You can tell it's hand painted. Similarly, my skull down here on the waistband, which I added, was pretty awful, but it's fine. Overall, like I said, from a distance and for the size, I think it looks really good. I'm really pleased with it. It's the first thing I've painted in a really long time. I hope you found it interesting just to go through this briefly with me. I would love your feedback. If you are into this sort of thing and you're good at it, or certainly better than me, then please tell me where I could have improved. How did I end up with this sort of glossy shine, which I'm not thrilled about, which certainly wasn't there before I sprayed the clear coat. how could I have weathered it better? How could I have made it look more realistic? You know, and next time I do something like this, I will try and capture some footage so you can actually see what I'm doing. I appreciate that not particularly easy to try and retrospectively guess how this stuff went down. What I did thoroughly enjoy though is just that escapism. The hours rolled by. You know, it's been a long time since I've done something like this, and just sitting for probably, like I said, around 20 hours doing this all in all was massively satisfying. You know, I just put on some YouTube, some Netflix, whatever it was, you know, just some background noise, and you know, just really enjoyed the process of creating something, and it's inspired me to do more. So I've got lots of other ideas of things I might go on to do in the future. So keep an eye out. If you like what you've seen, you want to see more of my half-assed attempts to do craft projects, then stick around. My little girl turns 5 in a couple of months, and as we are now housebound due to the coronavirus, I will be getting more time to do some of these projects. So she wants a My Little Pony, which I've decided to sculpt out of polymer clay, having never used polymer clay. So stick around for that. You know, we're talking a couple of months before you'll see that video, but if you're interested and you want to see me create something that might resemble a pony, then yeah, stick around. Thanks very much. Like I said, subscribe, like, add some comments, let me know what you think. Comments are the most interesting thing to me. You know, I'm not in this for, you know, for views and advertising, sponsorships, etc. I'm just doing this for fun. So, you know, I want to learn, I want to get better. If you've got any tips or techniques, please let me know. Share other channels with me that I might find interesting that do this kind of thing and do it better, so I can see what they're up to. But until next time, thank you very much for stopping by. I hope you found it interesting. Cheers.